Anyway, TLDR, I almost cried on broadcast. I didn't. I soldiered through, kept working, and then we got the call up for Copenhagen, which was, I think at that point, unexpected.
Yeah.
And frankly, I was pretty, kind of jaded, and there were plenty of opportunities throughout that year and whenever else to sort of just be like, let's give up, because the financial incentive, if you're not doing international events, frankly, isn't there. But the persistence paid off, I guess. No swearing. That's the golden rule.
You can swear for the exclusive content, right? Like we can kind of be a little bit more, a little bit more open, a little bit more free.
You're not meant to plug the Patreon in the first 5 seconds of the podcast.
Oh, this doesn't have to be this. We haven't started yet, have we?
Maybe we did. How am I going to edit it? You don't know. This could be the start.
No, I don't think so.
Everyone's already clicked off. It's bad for engagement.
Okay, no. All right, let's begin things here. Let's get underway. Do you want to start? Do you want to start it?
You start. You're the host.
Okay, I'll start it. This is episode number 1, Jake and Guzz podcast. We finally get this underway. It's good to be here. Obviously, a lot to talk about, a lot to get through. The beauty of it all is that it's all been done as I talk. It's already on YouTube.
There is a future Zedox out there, a future Jake that's already on YouTube.
I'm watching
with 1 million views.
Yeah. Don't know about that one. So obviously a little bit about what we're doing, I guess, and a little bit about what we want to do. I guess in some ways, Jake and Guzz is more like the overarching brand. This is the Siege show, where we're going to be talking about Siege, the game and the esport. The
Rainbow Six, the game that we all love. No, look, I think we really want this to be community driven, right? We want it to be sort of the home. Oh, I get to switch camera angles, by the way, so I'm going to be like tinkering around. This is going to sort of be, I think, or I see it, I don't know if you agree, as sort of a hub, right? To try and connect the casual and the pro community. I think there's been sort of that disconnect now for quite some time. So there's going to be, I think, episodes and segments that focus more so on the game and how the average Joe may approach it. There's also going to be parts where we talk about the pro scene, how they all intertwine, interconnect. And there's also going to be, we're going to debate a lot. We're going to argue. And our tagline, it's let's break the fourth wall. No bullshit.
No bullshit. No bullshit.
That's going to be sort of the vibe we're going for. That doesn't mean, there's no boundaries. We have to, keep things in check a little bit, but we're going to be pushing our filters.
Yeah,
more than we do on broadcast.
I might need you to just come in a little bit, mate. You're already.
Am I?
Come on,
I'm too casual.
It's the first episode.
Sorry.
Come on, you should know this. We do work as broadcasters. That is our full-time
job. The thing is, you can see how the shot is angled.
You need to come on over, mate. Come on, don't be too shy.
Sorry.
You can come closer.
I'm a little embarrassed. It's my first time on camera.
Yeah, okay, but it's certainly not. No, you really do need it. Come on, I'm just going to pull you over here. There you go. That's much better. Perfect. Okay, so...
Which means I'm probably out of shot for that one now.
Nah, probably not.
Okay, whatever.
You're probably fine. I wouldn't stress too much about it. So that's pretty much, I guess, a bit of a gist. In the future, as we progress, we might be able to branch to other games, other titles.
Other projects.
X-Defiant.
Oh, X-Defiant.
I'm just going to say it now.
That could be big.
Because I can say it.
You've just leaked it.
And obviously, maybe a little bit more about us, a little bit more of a personal look into sort of what we do as casters, as broadcasters. Yep. So cooking up some things, and that's really sort of the goal. Obviously, this being the Siege show will be focused about Siege, which we'll get into, obviously, now. So there's a couple of things to sort of talk about that we've got for this particular first episode. We're at a point where obviously there's some new stuff happening. We're also at a point where not much has happened, to be honest, for quite some time. So we've gone through a bit of a dry spell, unfortunately. Now, the first thing on the agenda is actually that new season Twitter teaser that just got out, 2 days ago from recording this episode. I hadn't actually seen it.
No,
I hadn't even seen it until we were kind of just getting ready to start filming, and I've gone to look at it.
Well, maybe. Well, so for those of you at home who may not know what we're talking about, right? It's that Twitter post I think I posted 2 days ago. I'll flash it up on screen if I editing this tonight have the brain power to do so, and it's sort of like this, barricade.
It's barricade.
It's like this light shooting
green
through.
light.
Maybe you should explain because you only just saw it before we went live. What was your initial reaction? Maybe what possibilities could this unlock?
Well, one, I see it on the sheet and I'm like, oh, new season Twitter teaser, what could this be? And it's literally just a barricade with some green lights. It literally looks like there's a disco on the other side of the barricade and we're missing out on the party or something. But immediately my brain started to get thinking, and I'm like, what could this potentially be? Obviously, surely it's going to be new operator, right? So obviously you're thinking, what is causing this green light? What's it doing? How's it happening? So my mind immediately has already sort of cast to, you're basically on the window, other side barricade, and maybe there's a gadget that you put in there and it like scans the area, scans the zone, potentially.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I know. So I
know-
can't comment. I genuinely think I have a pretty good inkling as to what it is because
Yeah.
walls talk.
This
you,
is-
for clarity, you have literally like
I
no idea.
have literally no idea. I promise I have absolutely no idea. I know that you know because you told me that you know. And I will also say typically I would know, but I've been a little bit lazy.
You're saying you being lazy is typical. That's not atypical behavior.
No, well, typically. I would have maybe found out this information, but I haven't.
So you're thinking it's some weird gadget, scans, does some crazy shit, whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
But you don't know much more than that.
I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about it.
Right.
And so therefore I can't actually get your thoughts on it really
No.
too much either.
But we may or may not do an episode next week when the reveal comes out, which is public, by the way, when the date is, I think.
So this is where we got to
where we'll react to it. We'll break it down. We'll talk all about that. Anyway, you want to move on?
Our tagline is no bullshit.
Yeah, right.
But we also can't step the line.
No, it's no bullshit, but also we can't leak because we like our jobs.
Yeah, this is not the leaking show.
No.
It's the seed show.
If we get enough patrons, maybe we'll be able to do that full time.
Oh, maybe a bit of already exclusive. No, we can't do that. I still don't think we can actually do that. Okay, so moving forward, the road map obviously
I went to the wrong. There we go.
has been updated pretty recently. Some key changes. I mean, we're not going to probably talk too much about the actual Season 2 update. It's been out for quite some time now.
Yep.
But some things have been brought forward. I'll probably get you to sort of touch on that. You are of the duo, the connoisseur when it comes to
The
these
expert,
things.
maybe?
Yeah, I guess I can say expert.
So look, I think obviously the first main point is that this was sort of a roadmap update. It wasn't actually, the game getting changed. I know we had to clarify that between ourselves and, probably best we clarify that for everyone else at home as well. The Grim update was brought forward to the next upcoming season. So that rework was broken down into 2 parts. I don't think we actually know what the next stage of that Grim rework is actually going to look like. So I'm sure we'll see that perhaps in the reveal. I genuinely have literally no idea what they're doing, what numbers they're tinkering, if they're changing the gadget, whatever. Does that mean he's going to be viable in pro play, even ranked? He's really not great. Maybe a pocket pick here or there. I don't know. If his gadget remains fundamentally the same, where you're having to place, a relatively stagnant gadget, and secondly, having to actually bring that gadget out and not being, some sort of under barrel attachment or whatever, I don't see it being particularly viable, unless there's some huge radical change. But maybe that would tilt it too far the other way.
You don't think it's going to change much moving forward for Grim? It's still a bit of a Grim fate.
Yes.
What do you think Grim needs then to become viable?
One under barrel attachment so that it's more mobile. So you're not necessarily having that huge animation block. And then outside of that, I don't know. You could probably tinker around with the numbers enough. But I mean, if I was having to spend resources on changing things in the game, that would be very low on my priority list. I'd tinker the numbers maybe, but I wouldn't go any further than that. Waste of time.
The other part of it as well is you can't necessarily balance everything for, say, competitive and pro esports. So
I'm sure we will discuss that plenty on this podcast. Don't worry.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
That will be a common theme.
Obviously, moving on, there is going to be the Freecam HUD update coming, but only replays to begin with.
Yeah, so my understanding is that there'll be a HUD update for Freecam in the next season for the replay mode, enabling you to pretty much just disable the HUD. So, I mean, it's kind of a bit boring, a bit basic. We don't have to stay on this point for too long. I mainly just wanted to highlight it as it's an important feature to have in replay mode, which I believe they have stated publicly it's being planned. How I understand it, there are some weird differences between replay mode, live observer mode, etc. So that's just something that needs to be dealt with. So, I mean, in my eyes, hopefully by SI, right, we have Freecam. We have multiple observer slots as well for online to allow that.
Yeah.
And then we can have a much more engaging and cinematic experience, right? You think of Counter-Strike, it's so much easier on the eyes. We're still stuck 8 years later with this clunky overhead shit that really annoys me. But I feel like we've gotten used to it. But for your average Joe who's tuning in, they'd be like, what is this dinosaur looking replay?
That is the beauty of this, is we can also talk about other games as well in comparison. And I think that when it comes to the sort of the free camp observer slots as well being increased, all of this just adds so much value to the live experience of a broadcast. So we're missing it pretty severely. Hopefully by it coming into even just replays only, it is that beginning of finally getting it into that live experience. It's something that Siege has been sorely missing, I think, for a long time now. Obviously, it's 2023. Like, we're getting on. We've needed this for...
You're not getting any younger.
We've needed this for a couple of years at the very least. And I can understand, obviously, why it's probably taken so long. Siege has a very strange spectating system, as we all know. I remember the first time I came in and I was like, I feel like I'm casting The Sims. It's a very unique experience. So very much looking forward to that, obviously making its way in. Yes, replays only is not that exciting. I don't think it's going to get much use, especially probably to the general public. But
I mean, maybe for like the odd content, but
yeah, maybe some content creators.
It's also, like I don't know if they're refining this as well, but the controls themselves kind of suck. So hopefully that gets improved.
Right.
I guess we can move on then, right? To picking the right camera. I will probably do that at least 10 times today.
That's part of the fun, though.
The contentious frost change. Now, I'll probably pop this up on screen as well and show what they revealed at the last Six Invitational, because I actually had forgotten kind of the basis of the rework when I wrote this dot point. But essentially at SI, they revealed that Frost would be getting a rework. If you get trapped in one, you can self-revive. You can then move around the map. I think it prevented you from sprinting, and it also left a blood trail behind. So the intention being that defenders could still sort of have an ability to trace you, and there was a downside to getting caught in the mat, even if you are able to self-revive. Now, I guess infamously, that was probably the only change I have ever heard at a Six Invitational panel get booed. The crowd literally booed at this change. And I think rightly so. The change kind of felt a little bit out of touch and a little bit unnecessary. And I think it was probably a remnant of when Frost was really good back in the day. And that's probably when, obviously, that started being changed. Reworks don't happen overnight. I'm sure they take a lot of time to develop. So it was a remnant of that. They've said, though, in this roadmap update that it is going to get changed to whatever was showed on the test server. So whether or not self-revive will stay, the blood trail, whatever, we don't know. But I guess we'll find out. So.
Would that kill Frost at a pro level?
Is Frost even alive at a pro level at the moment?
No, not necessarily. And that's the thing. So does therefore Frost really need the changes? No, absolutely not. It already has counterplay, especially if you play Sim at Windows.
I mean, the change wasn't for pro play, let's be real. It was for casual play because, and I mean, even at ranked play, I mean, there was this stat a while ago. I don't know how time relevant it would be now. This was years ago, where Frost was, her traps themselves actually performed the best at higher ranks because people literally were that careless and thoughtless that those traps would even be placed in particular spots or whatever. So maybe that was also a reason for the change. I don't know the data driving it, but I'm sort of keen to see what that change ends up being. All
right. Well, we won't probably spend too much time on that because, completely honest, we don't even know if it's going to come to fruition in the first place anyway. So obviously, I'm hoping it probably doesn't happen, to be complete. That's my opinion on it. I really don't want to see something like that change. It's been such a fundamental part of really Rainbow Six Siege and obviously Frost being around for such a long time. You just don't want to probably see some of those things change. I think that was probably about all in terms of the updates being brought forward for Season 3. Probably not too much else to really touch on. So we'll keep moving forward. The beauty of this show and this podcast is we don't really fill it with too much crap. This is not meant to be 2 hours long. We do want it to be...
this is...
pretty consuming.
We're probably going to fill this with... I'm going to fill this with 30 seconds of crap as you've just said that, but I envision this as, you know, it's Monday, right? For most of our viewers when they tune in, morning or evening, Monday's the worst day of the week. Why not chuck on our podcast, chill out for 30 minutes on your drive to or from work and, get your Siege fix.
Well, I mean, you don't have to watch it on Monday. It's also, you know, it's a video. You can watch it.
Wow, yes.
Save it.
But if you want to flex to your friends that I watched Jake and Guzz when it came out, I mean, go ahead.
Ooh. I like that. It's
no one's doing that. Don't be cringe.
No.
Move on.
Yeah, we'll move forward. Moving on. So, in terms of what we kind of want to touch on here, I think is a very fascinating topic.
I keep doing the wrong camera.
That's okay. It's
because the thing,
it's
okay.
episode 1.
Because
Guys,
the
it's
number.
okay.
Sorry.
You'll figure it out as we go along. So this one is probably a topic you'll, I think, have a little bit more say on. I'm a little bit older. I don't really care as much either, to be completely honest.
Which is why our dynamic is good.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Jynxzi.
Yeah.
Huge talking point. Cracks 100,000 Twitch subs.
Number 1.
Not that long ago. I don't know how many days ago. Since
Within the last 24 hours, I think. 24 to 48.
I think close to probably 48 from when we're recording this right now. Number 1 on Twitch, obviously, with those numbers, and basically plays Rainbow Six. Now, the question is, and the debate around it for me is, there's this notion that Siege content is dead, or to be a content creator in Siege, in its world, it's just not viable, and yet the most popular guy in the world right now in terms of Twitch is a Rainbow Six player. Is this more to do with Jynxzi, the person, and less to do with the content that is R6? I think so. And so therefore, does it really matter then? Is it all just an excuse? For those that say, I don't want to do Siege content anymore because Siege is dying or Siege is dead or whatnot, is it just a bunch of bullshit and no one wants to watch them?
I mean, I think this singular dot point, or the word Jynxzi, we could easily craft an entire episode around the many layers I think that this sort of catches on. So obviously, like everything, we invite people to chuck their thoughts, comments down below as well. And I hope to do an episode sort of discussing the content scene in a little bit more depth, because I think Jynxzi, his success is down to a couple of things. And Siege is not one of them. Personality is huge, and playing into the meta, things like TikTok, etc. Not just the content itself, but how it's, I think, delivered and connected to the audience is so key and so important. But you know what's funny? I remember a couple of years ago, a lot of creators were coming out and saying, my metrics are down, the game is dead, I don't know how much longer I can do this, the game needs to change, blah, 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 blah. I haven't seen any of those in the last 6 months. They've been real quiet. And Siege has seen an uptick in plays. I don't want to downplay that. The game's in a really good spot, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
And perhaps there's other things going on in the algorithm, whatever, in the content space that have driven up those creators to now be complaining less. But Jynxzi's growth is so exponentially off the chart compared to any of those metrics that he has done something right and made other content creators, especially those that have been around for a long time and seen a downtrend, look bad. Their content has become stale, repetitive. That's been a problem that I have called out, privately with you in the group for a long time, that Siege content has just
Not private anymore.
has kind of been bad for a long, long time. This is where we air out all the dirty laundry. So I think Jynxzi has led the way in a lot of those fronts. And if that raises the platform for everyone and encourages others to improve and innovate and inspires them to do cool shit, then great.
Now, this might seem a little bit controversial to others. To you, probably comes to no surprise. I've personally never watched Jynxzi, despite being, of course,
even I don't. I'll be completely transparent. I've watched him occasionally. I enjoy his TikToks, his shorts content, etc. I don't think he's really targeting even my age. Like, I'm 23, obviously. He's probably targeting, I would say, 18 and below, maybe. So it's not my target demographic, but I can relate to why people enjoy this content, why people enjoy content like XQC. They enjoy the personality and engage with that. Jynxzi could play literally any game on planet Earth. The same number of people are going to tune in.
That's pretty much what I'm getting to, right? Is that, like, I haven't necessarily watched him enough to sit back and say, well, yeah, maybe there is a reason why it's because of Rainbow Six. Is it that much a part of what his core identity is? Is he actively playing it for 90% of the stream? Is it just barely visible? Is it mostly full screen? I mean, these are questions I'm just asking you because, quite honestly, I haven't necessarily watched him all that much. And I know that in terms of the meta, for a lot of these big streamers, it is actually way more about them than it is the game.
I mean, the meta at the moment on Twitch, right, is just chatting and reacting. Now, Jynxzi's not exempt from doing that, but you look at his metrics, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was well over 90% is Siege. And there are no other content creators getting anywhere near those kinds of numbers on Siege. And again, this does not directly correlate with the game being the number one game on Steam or something crazy like that, where you'd be like, okay, it kind of makes sense that the top Twitch streamer of everyone with over 100,000 subs is a main Siege streamer. So I don't know how much of his popularity has been drawn from maybe the game seeing a bit of an uptick. I don't know. If anything, I think he might be a motivating factor for the game increasing in popularity.
You would hope so. I mean, at that point,
Which is a good thing.
because there's obviously that debate around him, and therefore the game comes with it. So, no, I think fair play to him. If it's a game that he enjoys, he plays it. If it's a part of his success, even minor, it's still something that obviously does need to be discussed. So, I'm very curious to see kind of how that landscape changes potentially for Rainbow Six content creators. Do they kind of just look to emulate what Jynxzi's doing? Do they obviously think, okay, maybe we can play Rainbow Six? Because like the thing is, I'm sure there's probably someone out there that's like, well, Xenox, why didn't you not go and watch him as research? Well, this is why it's called no bullshit.
That's right. But, I mean,
this is meant to be like unfiltered. Like,
Yeah.
I just straight up want to talk about.
Well, I
it 'cause
mean,
I don't know the guy that.
I don't want to
well.
expose your age too much, but you're literally in your 30s. You're not going to be watching
Well,
Jynxzi.
I don't think you have to say I'm literally in my 30s.
But you are.
I've just turned 30 this year. That's not.
You're in
I'm
your 30s.
In my 30s.
You're in your 30s.
I haven't reached that point just yet.
Well, look,
Calm
I think we
down.
leave that point there. I think
Yeah,
we can go a lot more in depth on that, maybe get some insight from content creators, community, etc. before we talk about that more. But congrats, Jynxzi, 100K, number one. Absolute Chad.
We'll get him on the podcast.
Maybe one day. That'd be pretty crazy. We'll fly him down.
Now, massive change, obviously, in terms of next discussion point here. Again, we just do what we like here on the Siege Show. We don't.
There'll be chapters down below.
We don't have producers telling us what to do anymore. We can just talk about whatever we want. Can change things up. Now, so going from Jynxzi to talking about Wildcard. So again, chapters down below. Meaning, I'm sure someone's just pretty much clicked on this because they actually want to see some drama in the esports world of things for Rainbow Six. As people know, if they don't know, Wildcard has dumped their Oceanic roster in favor of picking up a North American team, which seems as if that's actually still ongoing. It's not even like a finite thing.
Well, yeah. We say on this podcast that we don't leak, but if something is publicly leaked and relatively verifiable, and then we're going to mention it here. We're not going to state that it's fact, but we'll go with it. Seems like Wildcard entering NA, they'll be openly trialing players, whatever that means. So I guess they're just going to scout a whole bunch and see what they can muster up. They're not, going to come in and poach a roster. So, I mean, that's going to be super interesting in its own right, and probably a better discussion for the Stage 1 preview, right, as we get closer towards that. We're still, as of the recording and publishing of this, like about a month away. So a while to go. I think the more interesting discussion point, though, is the OCE roster. The how, the why, and what position they're in now.
Again, it's difficult. We don't want to leak. We also probably don't want to speak on behalf of others. We have reached out, though, to Zach, which is his new handle, formerly Logic.
I think he's going back to Logic.
Is he going back to Logic? That's probably the most logical thing to do, because Zach just sounds just absolutely weird. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of international people potentially watching this that aren't as familiar with the Oceanic roster. Pretty much second best team in OCE. They were competing against Team Bliss to go to Copenhagen, and they'll, I'm assuming, be doing so once again, but now under a new banner for the Atlanta Major. So it's not exactly like it's some random team. These guys are contending to go to majors. They got a direct path in doing so. It's actually a pretty decent deal for an organization. Wildcard is giving up a really good team here. Now, obviously, you've reached out to Logic.
Yep.
If there's anything that, he wants to sort of get across, this is where this show lets us do it.
Yeah, and I think, again, just because this is the first episode, just giving a little bit of context, where there is stories like this, we are going to try and endeavor to reach out and actually get, personal comments if people are comfortable in doing so. So I reached out to Log and I sort of was just asking, what's your take on the particular situation? And Logic actually, to his credit, came back. Logic Zach came back and actually offered quite a bit of insight. And he pretty much painted the picture from his perspective that Wildcard made the correct business decision, which I'm sure probably us also agree with, entering the North American market. But they probably didn't go about it perfectly, but they also weren't particularly nefarious in the way in which they did go about it. It sounds like it sort of was dropped on them a little bit out of the blue. In fact, I think there was a window there, maybe not particularly big, where you probably knew from leaks as well, that this was happening before the actual roster did. Now, that doesn't leave the best feeling in my mind, but business is business, so things need to be dealt with officially and whatever. So I'm not going to pin the org for that particularly taking place, but it's unfortunate this roster, again, it sort of gets dumped on them. They've got a month now to sort of recoup. Is another share org going to jump into OCE? No. So, I mean, it puts them in a really compromised position. And unfortunately now sort of the legitimacy of the rest of the league now sort of comes into question as well.
Yeah, and it's not as if OCE is exactly flowing with a bunch of orgs as it maybe was 3-4 years ago. It's actually quite barren in terms of organizations in this region. That's probably more of an esports dry spell that we're kind of going through at the moment in general, probably a topic for another day. But it's going to be very difficult to see them picking up at least a decent organization.
Well, I mean, on that point, there was discussions. Wildcard did make attempts to try and transition this OCE roster into a new org. It sounds like maybe those discussions have broken down, so that may result in a little bit of a dead end. But regardless, again, that new org isn't going to be in the share program as far as I would understand. So yes, it's an org, but in OCE, you're not going to be getting paid much. What are the benefits really going to be? I don't know.
The best thing they can offer as well is the fact that they're competing up against Team Bliss, and therefore they're competing for a spot at the major. And they will evidently be doing that this coming stage, and you would imagine for stages to come. We probably won't touch too much more, I guess, on that one. Basically, TLDR, Wildcard, not necessarily the most evil of things that has ever been done in the history of esports.
No.
They just kind of did it very last second and clearly could have done it a little bit better.
And just to clarify, the roster keeps their SI points. The org made no effort to like try and steal them or anything. So sounds all relatively legit.
Yeah. The worst thing that comes out of it is Logic obviously purchased his own wildcard jersey to get it.
Will he get a refund?
I've reached out. He will not be getting a refund. So
that hurts.
Moving on to, again, some esports topic conversation here. Rin is back, obviously from the Korean region, but now joining Varel from the Japanese region. Now, this is something that we've seen before, most namely in Apex Legends, obviously, which we've both covered before, where teams actually have Japanese-Korean hybrids, not just as the teams, but even these organizations. So it's not necessarily like otherworldly. It's not going to be that much of a surprise, but I did do a little bit of research. I couldn't find a hybrid between a couple of Korean players and a couple of Japanese players participating at the highest of level, at least not recently.
And that was sort of the little debate or discussion we had because, when I saw it, I was like, wait, Japan, Korean mix? Have we ever seen that? And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but your sort of reaction was, I mean, probably, surely, right? Like it's probably happened somewhere. And then you had a look and yeah, as far as we can tell, at least like at a T1 level in Japan or Korea, there hasn't been a mix. Again, if you're in the comments and you know better than we do, jump in and tell us. But
100%.
Seems like a hybrid job. Obviously, Rin, fantastic player, had a really memorable couple of months there, back in the Mexico major sort of phase around that sort of point in time. Then probably went through a rough patch, as did the rest of Damwon Kia. So
as did maybe all of Korea.
And that rough patch probably continuing. So arguably he's jumped now to a slightly stronger region and can find some success.
Definitely a stronger region. I think Japan. I mean, probably a discussion.
Stage 1 preview.
Closer to the Stage 2 preview.
Stage 2.
Yeah,
sorry.
Stage 2, mate. Stage 1's long gone.
Stage 1 review.
It will be interesting to kind of keep track of that move, and obviously there's going to be plenty of other moves moving forward into Stage 2, which we will get to.
Lots of moving
in due time. The beauty.
Are you moving?
No, I'm staying put, mate. I'm not heading off to Japan. Don't worry. All right. So moving forward, as we're already, I think, pretty deep into this first episode.
Are we on time?
I think we are on time, and we've still got time. That's the beauty of it. And now we can probably get to.
We're not running out of time. Sorry,
that's a bit of an intro, isn't it? for the international viewers, that's the old Oceanic.
I'm derailing.
Continue. Theme song. But yeah, so getting to what I imagine should end up being our thumbnail for this. You're the graphics.
Is this
guy.
where we do like reaction shots? Down the we can do those later.
No, we can do that. I would imagine this is obviously where we've alluded to talking about Copenhagen.
Yeah.
So it was firstly a great experience, and this is where we have pretty differing roads into getting to Copenhagen, and also differing experiences at Copenhagen to a degree, being your first LAN, your first international experience. For me in CGS, but obviously not in general. So quite a lot to touch on. And yeah, I mean, we've literally got it written down here.
We've got it condensed to 3 dot points and 2 weeks on the other side of the planet.
Long road to get there. Get to Copenhagen, to get to our first major. Yeah. And it probably in some ways started all the way back in 2021 when we actually did 6 Invitational from home.
I mean, we could wind the clock back slightly further. I know we don't want to harp on this too much, but obviously I first started casting Siege in 2019 at a community level, and
I was
did Pro
2020.
League by the end of 2019, and you were like, what, mid to late 2020 or something?
Mid 2020.
With Dev.
With Dev. And
And-
Raven. Raven was the first one I
Yep.
actually ever cast Siege with. It was
And
a
then,
off-broadcast one.
when actually did we start casting together? What, late 20 or
I don't,
early
well,
21?
It would have been early 2021 or very, very late 2020. Yeah, because we did, 6 Masters?
Yep.
And then we had, I think OCN actually had a little season, or like OCN finals or something like that. So yeah, we didn't actually have a whole lot of time together as a duo going into that 6 Invitational.
No.
As everyone's probably aware by now, a very unique 6 Invitational that took place, and pretty much everyone who was working Siege at the time got to work that event, essentially, except I think Rob. I had to say it.
Manic Monday, of
But,
course, host of
yeah.
OCE and other regions. But
And a big reason why we're able to do this as well. So shout out to Rob and to Rect. But yeah, I think that is probably the case. It was obviously a very, very full roster.
I mean, that was obviously my road and our road. But for you, you obviously go further back, right? Siege was not your first endeavor into the marvelous world of esports. And you'd done lands before. You don't have to rattle them all off. We don't have all night.
We don't have that much time.
We know you've been to Sweden, but obviously for Siege though, it was something that you had to build up to.
Yeah, I did obviously have to build up to that. Obviously, doing 60 Invitational 2021, I mean, I was under no illusion that meant suddenly we were going to now go and get majors and SIs to follow or anything along those lines. It was...
And to clarify, at that point, we kind of got told that it went online. We sort of just got a bit lucky, and they needed people to sort of slide in. Right?
Yeah, which was completely understandable.
Yes.
Completely understandable at the time. I was very fresh. I mean, less than a year
yeah.
into the game, and looking back on it now, I probably shouldn't have done that broadcast. To be completely honest, like shouldn't have done that 6 Invitational.
Give the money back.
Not giving the money, not giving the money back. And obviously, hence why we didn't really see repeat follow-ups at all, realistically, for the rest of 2021. Going into 2022 was probably the first time we were able to finally have that synergy, that longevity as a core duo. By that point, it was well and truly known. It was us. We were going to be working together and improving together from that point onwards. And obviously then that's eventually then led into 2023 and finally getting the major, which, probably not skipping too much. I think a lot of the times, every time we kind of missed out on a major, I think there was always this kind of level of understanding. Either, the talent pool wasn't that large, or it was in a certain region. We never really were like ultra bummed. It always sucks. Like you miss out on these things.
Podcast exclusive. I think, obviously that might be your experience, but for me, I think especially when we found out that we weren't working, whichever was first, Berlin or Jynxzi. I think it was Berlin.
There's been a lot of Sweden events.
Berlin is not in Sweden.
No, I know, but there's been a lot of Sweden events. I can't remember them all, so I don't know when. I can't even remember.
Because anyway, my point being, on the sort of lead up to Berlin would have been, I don't know, a month before or whatever, I was having relatively casual discussions within Ubisoft about, the potential of working that event in some capacity, obviously, because at that point I'd been working the game for like, I don't know, fucking 3 years or whatever it was, and hot off SI 2021. And to find out that I wasn't working that event, it genuinely really hurt. And I actually haven't talked to you about this or anyone about this. So this is, quite a vulnerable sort of thing to talk about. But I found out that we weren't working that event. I think, James posted something in the chat that he and Mandy got the offer, and may have talked about who else was working that event. Obviously it wasn't us. And that night we were working an APAC South event. And obviously at that point, obviously looking back now, I couldn't really care that much, but I was actually genuinely like really upset and angry. Well, not angry, but however you want to frame it. And
it certainly affected you.
Yeah, and even thinking back to it now, I'm getting a bit like emotional. No, well, funny you say that, because this is kind of cringe to say now, but during the count-in for that APAC South event, I remember sitting there, it was all I was thinking about. And as we came on camera, I was really upset, and I was genuinely in that moment having to fight back tears. Genuinely, I'm not saying that to farm sympathy or to exaggerate my emotions or anything like that. I was genuinely really devastated to not work that event.
Is that more so because you felt there was that little inkling that maybe this was the one that you could get? Like there was some discussion, so it was a little bit closer to home.
Yeah, it was. Tease is the wrong word because that's not what it was. That's just, the figure of speech I would use. Is it sort of like you felt like you had half a foot in the door when you're having these discussions, and then to sort of have it slammed in your face a little bit hurt. And it's improved now, but at the time, we as a duo never received any feedback or anything to improve or why we weren't selected for X event or Y event or whatever, which I think made it even more frustrating and annoying. And obviously we talked about this in private and whatever, and, dealt with it as we did. But I think as well, we sort of pride ourselves in being a duo that isn't going to go out there and have a sook and have a whinge on Twitter or any of that shit, because it's just unprofessional. And I hate talent that do that shit. It really pisses me off. I think it's cringe.
I agree wholeheartedly. I've seen it, and it's not just an
R6
thing.
No. It's done way more in other titles.
It's honestly quite ridiculous.
So anyway, TLDR, I almost cried on broadcast. I didn't. I soldiered through, kept working, and then we got the call up for Copenhagen, which was, I think at that point, unexpected.
Yeah.
And frankly, I was pretty, kind of jaded, and there were plenty of opportunities throughout that year and whenever else to sort of just be like, let's give up, because the financial incentive, if you're not doing international events, frankly, isn't there. But the persistence paid off, I guess.
Certainly did. I think that's a big testament to both of us as a duo, that we kind of just stuck with it. When you're seeing a lot of your colleagues obviously get to go to these events and do these shows, North America, Europe, a lot of the talent getting to work the majority of these events during an era where, we obviously were doing APAC South and our Oceania League, OCN. We didn't have as much on as we did, say, for example, Stage 1 this year, where we got to cover quite an array of leagues. Looking forward to those majors and potentially getting an offer was something that most talent did, and we just never got invited.
And look, just to piggyback off that point, I don't want to come across as, entitled, and there are plenty of very smart business and other decisions that go into this, right? Like, we're from APAC. We're the shittest region. We get the worst viewership, and that only compounds itself. Obviously, we can make arguments that, the diversity of views and the knowledge of the region is really valuable. But at the end of the day, viewership is a really key metric in a publisher-backed esports. We don't, have huge Twitter followings or any of that to also bring into the show. With really just our casting ability. And that, frankly, only gets you so far. And that's not, and that's, again, I want to make it clear before someone fucking clips this and puts it on Twitter, that doesn't necessarily mean that bad casters get work. I mean, sometimes it does. I've seen it in other titles, but just raw casting ability in a lot of titles, it's frankly just not enough.
No, 100%. I think that it's probably a big reason why we're doing this show now. And
not the primary reason, but...
Well, not the primary reason, but I think it's something that really the industry itself has sort of gone into, is evolving in nature. Very discussion for another episode, because we could continue to ramble on. It's interesting you say that, though, especially your disappointment about Berlin. I think at the time I got an offer to go work Thailand for PUBG, so I was
you were balling.
I was fine. I definitely wasn't in that boat. Obviously, by the time Copenhagen did come around, though, we can probably turn our attention towards Copenhagen itself.
When your PUBG career turned to shit. So this was actually really important.
The fucking timing of it, I swear to God, it's insane. I literally just come back from Dubai and then straight to Copenhagen. It was something that we knew about Blast. Evidently, I think everyone actually knew about Blast, obviously pre-Copenhagen. I think was the announcement at SI. I can't remember the timing of it.
About what?
Like Blast coming involved with the esports ecosystem for R6. Regardless of when.
I mean, we knew.
We obviously knew privately, publicly, that Blast were coming involved. So we kind of felt like a dawn of a new era, potentially, with Blast coming involved, that there could be some changes. Maybe some doors might open up. Potentially for new casters, maybe for some fresh talent at like majors at SI, for example. We hadn't done one, and it would since 2021, and that was online. So it's not really like we've done an SI, to be honest. I don't really count it that much. I don't count it that much. So Copenhagen coming around, we were obviously fortunate enough to get an offer to obviously work the major, which again, when we get those offers, we don't know how many talent are actually working the event. You just get told like, hey, do you want to come work the major? And we're just like, hell yeah, like this is amazing, finally. And I almost want to say about time. Like I honestly feel like you know, the way that we've improved and continued to set our standards higher and higher, basically every single season, every single year, for 2-3 years, essentially 3 years by the time you get to Copenhagen. It's a testament that we never kind of just gave up, phoned it in or whatever. We just kept pushing, kept trying, and finally got that reward. So getting Copenhagen for me was more of a relief than anything, just in the sense that finally in Siege there is that validation. I had done a lot of PUBG LANs, a lot of PUBG international events, world championships, Apex playoffs, for their ALGS, international Overwatch events. And so I always felt a little bit, I'm going to be completely honest, I always felt a little bit disrespected by R6 and by Ubisoft, because obviously at the time they were the ones that were basically running the ship. Because I felt like, well, I've got all this experience, I've got, you know, all of this years and years of basically doing these world championship level events. I can do it. I've got... you know, I don't have a show reel, but I've got...
Do we bring up the clip?
I do.
That's a good in-joke, but we'll save that one for another day. That's a really good in-joke.
Yeah, I do have all of this experience, and obviously you know the game very, very well. You know Siege very well. Yep. You're improving as a color caster. Like, it's, in my mind, and I've watched a lot of esports. I've been around for 7 years. I always just kind of felt it was, unfortunately, two people that just quite weren't getting their shot. Finally got our shot. And that's, again, like, I don't want to big up ourselves too much, but sometimes you've also got to just give yourself a pat on the back.
Yeah.
That's the case of it. And you've got to be confident within yourself. If you're not confident within yourself, you're never going to get anywhere. And I always felt confident in us as a duo, especially in you. And I felt like, obviously, I had sort of the rewards elsewhere, just never in Siege. So Copenhagen, finally, the reward was in Siege. And that felt absolutely amazing. And obviously, we got to go to Copenhagen. And for you, it was your first LAN, believe it or not.
Woo!
And obviously your first international event. So I really want to hear your thoughts on it more than anything. I think mine probably won't be all that exciting. But for you, I like, from everything, from just flying there, getting to the hotel, going to the studio, all of those things, kind of walk us through it.
I mean, it's interesting that you mention, you know, feelings and confidence and stuff like that. I don't want to be too underwhelming, but I think for me, it just felt like such a long time in the making that I was excited to an extent, but I was also very much like, you know, this is a business trip. Like, I'm here to work, like, have some fun, enjoy the experience. It's obviously a very privileged position, and there's plenty of other people that would love to do this job. So I don't want to take it for granted, but at the same time, it was very much like, I'm there. You know, I've worked my ass off to be here. I want to actually do a good job. So I wasn't, you know, beaming with confidence. I also wasn't nervous. There's obviously that infamous story that I love to tell James. I've probably told you at some point. 2019, my first Pro League studio cast in Sydney. I was so nervous, so nervous that I didn't eat for like, I hardly ate for days leading into that because I was just so nervous. But I had no feelings remotely close to that at all for this event. I thought, you know, logic is telling me that I should be nervous for this, right? It's my first LAN, flying to the other side of the world, literally. I don't know. I was just like, sure, okay, great. I'll just do the work. We'll be fine. The expectations weren't that high. We also didn't do a crowd cast, so I didn't have to worry about that. So yeah, it was very much just a hint of excitement, but also just, let's put our heads down, do the job.
Yeah.
Maybe that, I don't know, am I brushing it off too much?
Honestly, I think that's pretty similar. I think back to my very first sort of massive international gig, which was PUBG Nations Cup 2019.
Was that the infamous one? Forever.
No, that was the World Championship.
Okay,
after.
sorry.
But for that particular event, like, that was actually already, you know, in a stadium. I had to cast with Pansy, who was
no pressure,
who's just like one of the goats basically in commentating. So absolutely no pressure. But I also didn't necessarily feel that nervous. I think there was that level of excitement. And, that was obviously the same for Copenhagen. I probably didn't feel that nervous either going into Copenhagen, because at the end of the day, we've been doing this for so long. Truthfully as well, it's not like we were obviously like in the arena or anything. It was really studio broadcast. Players just happened to be behind a wall, basically, in other room. So it's not like it was anything too unbecoming to what we've basically done in other working studio environments. It was obviously a lot of fun. It was a really good experience for both of us to be able to work that level of event for Siege. Again, finally get to cast some of these teams we hadn't actually cast in terms of organizations since Six Invitational 2021, which there were actually still quite a lot of players running around that we...
I mean, I know I'm glad I flew halfway across the world to cast REVEN Northeption. That was...
Yeah.
I mean, look, jokes aside, it was a close game. So
it certainly was.
It was entertaining.
I remember when that game finished, and I remember going on Reddit, and like people were like, that's like one of the best, worst games of all time.
I'm pretty sure someone made some comment about like us hating REVEN or Northeption or something. Maybe this was a different game. I don't even remember. I just remember replying and trolling it a little bit. Anyway, sorry, I'm distracted from your point.
I remember reading the one comment I remember actually was that we hyped it up too much because it was REVEN Northeption and it was shit. And it's like, why are these cars? It's like, that's our fucking job. What do you want us to do? You know what I mean?
I don't think we treated it like a grand final.
Yeah. No, but we kind of have to in some ways. Like my casting philosophy is you don't want to be at 100 all the time. You also don't want to be disingenuous. One thing that obviously we've tried to improve on as well is probably not beating down too much on those losing teams. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you just kind of have to fluff everyone up and make everyone out like they're bloody amazing. If something's shit, I want to say it's shit.
I mean, the way I explain it is if everything's good, nothing's good.
Yeah, 100%.
For something to be good, another thing has to be bad. It's just how things balance out.
Yeah.
So
we are getting towards the end of this first podcast, this first series. I don't know why I said this first series. It's not the end of the first series. It's the end of the first episode. We've got a long series of this show.
I felt like we only talked about Copenhagen for about 2 seconds. Did we really talk about it for that long?
Well, we can talk about it more, maybe exclusively.
Oh.
Something that, of course...
Wow, maybe we could talk about my near-death experience.
You know what? I think we probably can.
We probably could.
Talk about that.
We'd have to skirt some details.
I don't even know if we can allude too much to it, actually, on this. What I will say, though, of course, getting this first episode done means a lot. I think in this industry, it's sometimes easy to put out the first one. I think in our instance, actually, it wasn't that easy.
We spent about 5 hours preparing this set and countless hours workshopping this, but yeah.
Yeah, and all basically in what, the last 2 weeks, we kind of really got things up and running from nothing to this. So it's been a lot of hard work to get this first episode up and running. We didn't want to half-ass it either. We didn't want to just do it online, podcast
and just like ramble on 3 hours of whatever. Yeah.
And we can only do this obviously due to Rob Manic, Wrecked.
Yeah, we love Wrecked.
We absolutely love Wrecked. So big shout out to him and to Wrecked as well. Obviously, for those that know Manic, he is the host for OCE. You'll see his lovely booty in that chair, of course, hopefully soon to come. No leaks.
That sweaty booty.
But yeah, other than that, obviously, big thanks to everyone for hopefully tuning in.
Well, if you made it this far,
if you
have a really boring social life, or we were really, really good.
Yeah.
So you decide.
One or the other. Or maybe someone's just like clicked it at the end and they're just like, I wonder how they close the show.
I wonder what their Patreon link is. Whoa.
So we do have a Patreon. We'll shout that out very quickly. Hopefully in about a year, we can do like a little credit list. You know how like the really good podcast, they'll just have like names and names of people. And hopefully
maybe by episode 2, there'll be 1 or 2 names.
Maybe.
In fact, there's already actually a Patreon. I believe. So there's going to be at least 1 name on the first episode. So shout out to that person.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get that done. In terms of what I guess you can get from that, it supports us, and it pretty much really just goes back into us being able to do these things. Yep. Ideally, we'd love to hire a producer so we don't keep getting you pressing the wrong buttons.
I think I got a bit better towards the end.
Yeah, I think you did pick it up.
Yeah, it'd be a really good way to support us, support the content, support the scene.
Yep.
What you can expect there, exclusive content. So every single week, Once you watch this episode, go over to Patreon. There's going to be a bonus clip where we talk about something. There's going to be a lot less censorship, a lot more swearing, and some spicier topics.
Yeah,
so
a lot less censorship.
Not YouTube friendly content, I can tell you that much.
So yeah, 100%. Anything
Plus
is appreciated.
Discord access. You can tell us what you want to see. If you have Q&A questions as well, we'll pop those throughout the show.
Yep.
So we want it to be, again, community driven. Of course, if you don't have the money to support us, that doesn't mean we're going to ignore you. Again, we want this to be sort of the hub. Come in, have a chat, give us your thoughts, and we'll react.
Post your comments, obviously down below. You can hit us up. Obviously, we'll be in and around the subreddits, obviously on X, as well as Twitter, X, Jesus, whatever happens to that web. So we're on Instagram as well, I think too. We've got TikTok.
We got everything.
We've got everything. So we'll obviously put all of our socials and links down below in the bio. So thank you to everyone for tuning in, for watching. Much love to all, and hopefully we'll get to see you in the next episode. Take care. We'll just keep going.
Do one of these ones.
Did that.